Welcome to the finals of the Open Division of the 2019 NAQT Small School National Championship Tournament. This is a two-game advantaged final, meaning if in this game Miami Valley School A were to win, they will be the champions. If Parish Episcopal are to win, it will force a one-game final with everything on the line. Now let's meet the participants. From Dallas, Texas, head coach Patrick Lipscomb in Parish Episcopal School. Now from Dayton, Ohio, playing with the advantage in this final, head coach Tyler Benedict and Miami Valley School A. William Broger. John Broger. Miami Valley School A. The officials for this final, the scorekeeper, NAQT member, Mr. Dwight Kidder.
You said scorekeeper.
The third official is Dwight Kidder. The scorekeeper, Jason Hernandez. And your moderator, NAQT member, Larissa Kelly. Good luck to both teams.
If both teams are ready to begin, we will start round 21, toss-up 1. A constant named for the scientist is equal to 1 over the scale factor times the time derivative of the scale factor. The inverse of that constant is an estimate of the age of
Hubble.
Nice. Good job.
Light can act as a particle or a wave for 10 points each. In his book Optics, this Englishman suggested that light acted as a particle called a corpuscle. Yes. In 1803, this British scientist described his double slit experiment, which showed that light actually...
Young?
Yes. Young's experiment supported the wave theory proposed by this Dutch physicist, whose inventions include the pendulum clock.
Huygens.
Yes, there you go. Toss-up 2. Amateur actors from this U.S. state performed the musical Red, White, and Blaine in Christopher Guest's mockumentary Waiting for Guffman. Jennifer Lawrence received her first Oscar nomination for Winter's Bone, a film set in this state. In a 2017 film, a bereaved mother confronts a police chief by renting 3...
Missouri.
10 points.
Nice.
The Schwiesky family of one-time Tsar Vasily IV originally belonged to this class for 10 points each. Name this class of nobles in Russia and Eastern Europe who were usually in the second tier of the feudal hierarchy beneath the princes.
Boyar. Yes.
This great Russian Tsar curtailed the power of the boyars and forced them to adopt...
Peter the Great.
Yes. In 1698, Peter levied a tax of up to 100 rubles on this feature, which was commonly...
Feared.
Yes.
Let's go.
Toss-up 3. This ruler faced an unsuccessful revolt whose leaders included one of his sons known as the Young King. This man was named heir by Stephen of Blois, ending a lengthy war called the Anarchy. He mused, well, no one...
Henry II.
15.
Nice. Good job.
The claim that the sun never sets on the British Empire is still technically true, for 10 points each. The sun would figuratively set if Britain were to lose this small Pacific island group, whose occupants are largely descended from mutineers on the HMS Bounty.
Okay. Pitcairn.
Yes.
Nice.
The sun sets in the Pitcairn Islands 3 hours after doing so in this British Caribbean territory, a noted tax shelter comprising Grand and Little Islands.
British Virgin Islands.
No, sorry, it's the Cayman Islands. And when the sun has set in the Western Hemisphere, it is shining on the small British territory of Diego Garcia, which is in this ocean that also contains the island of Mauritius.
Indian Ocean.
Yes, 20 in the list. Topic 4. In one story by this author, an old man cordially asks a pair of boys how many sweethearts they have, but later declares that boys who have a girl for a sweetheart should be whipped. This author of An Encounter also wrote a story in which Greta recalls a lost love named Michael Fury after...
Joyce.
Yes, 10 points.
Nice job.
This author fictionalized his father's economic struggles in the novel A House for Mr. Biswas for 10 points each. Famous British
Nightfall.
Yes. Like Mr. Biswas, Nightfall was born on this Caribbean island. It is the largest island in a country that also includes Tobago.
Trinidad.
Yes. Mr. Biswas is considered unlucky because he was born with this physical feature. A vizier in The Princess Bride and a child in The Brothers Karamazov also have this feature.
He has 6 fingers.
Yes.
Come on, sir.
Toss-up 5. After a 2017 mosque shooting, this country's leader referred to the nationalist organization The PAC as a group of no-no. In 2018, a resident of this country named Alec Manassian, who self-identified as an incel, used a van to kill 10 people. A 2014 shooting in this country's capital took place on Parliament Hill. For 10 points, name this country where crimes are investigated by the RCMP, or Mounties.
Canada.
10 points. Pencil and paper ready. The Ulam spiral is an arrangement of integers with 1 at the center, then increasing numbers spiraling outward counterclockwise for 10 points each. The Ulam spiral is interesting to mathematicians because along its diagonals, there are relatively many of these numbers, such as 3, 13, 31, 5, 17, and 37.
Primes.
Yes. According to the prime number theorem, the chance that a random integer between 1 and n is prime is roughly 1 over this function of n. The prime number density along many Ulam spiral diagonals is much greater.
Square.
I'm saying natural logarithm. And the expression n squared minus n plus 41 outputs primes for many integer values of n, but is the smallest positive integer for which it does not output a prime. Answer, please.
9.
41, so 10 points for those. Toss of 6. Mastodon and camel bones have been recovered at this state's John Day fossil bed.
Oregon.
15.
Nice job, Jen.
Abraham Lincoln joked that if this general isn't going to use his army, I'd like to borrow it for a time, for 10 points each. Name this Union general whose army of the Potomac was defeated during the 7 Days battles.
McClellan.
Yes, the 7 Days followed McClellan's failed campaign to capture this capital of the Confederacy.
Richmond.
Yes. After the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln replaced McClellan with his general, who led the Army of the Potomac to a disastrous defeat at Fredericksburg.
Burnside.
Yes, 30 on the
Nice
bonus.
job.
Toss up 7. At a 2002 press conference, a man with this government position discussed known knowns and unknown unknowns. This position's first occupant, James Forrestal, was asked.
Secretary of Defense.
Yes,
Good
15
job.
points.
Good job.
For 10 points each, answer the following with the size of blood vessels. Activating this division of the autonomic nervous system decreases the diameter of blood vessels. This division of the nervous system mediates the fight or flight response.
Wait, sympathetic. Sympathetic.
Yes.
Yes.
The diameter of blood vessels is controlled by the smooth type of this tissue.
Muscles.
The skeletal type of this tissue is
Muscle.
abundant. Yes. According to Poiseuille's law, the resistance of a blood vessel is inversely proportional to this power of the radius.
2. Square, probably? Shit. 2.
So that's 4, so 20 on the bonus. Toss up 8. A tubular complex called a spongiome surrounds one type of this organelle, which receives and loses material in processes called diastole and systole. In other organisms, this organelle is surrounded by a membrane called a tonoplast and regulates the turgor pressure against the cell.
Vacuole.
Yes, 10 points. The speaker of this poem implores the reader not to go to the grave like a hoary slave at night for 10 points each. Name this meditation on death that describes an innumerable.
Thanatopsis.
Yes, this American poet of To a Waterfowl wrote Thanatopsis when he was only a teenager.
Bryant.
Yes, Bryant was part of a group of writers known as the Fireside Poets, which also included this author of Old Ironsides.
Holmes Senior.
Yes, 30 on the bonus.
Oh, come on.
Toss at 9. While playing for this team, Armando Galarraga came one out short of a perfect game. This team won the 1984 World Series behind MVP Alan Trammell, who managed this team in the 2000s. Its 119 losses in 2003 are the most in AL history. Ty Cobb spent 22 seasons with this team, which was the first major league team of Justin Verlander. Miguel Cabrera is on.
Detroit.
Yes, that's 10 points. Bonus. This country is home to the left-wing Party of the Democratic Revolution for 10 points each. Name this country led by the institutional revolutionary party. Yes. This man, who is called Donald Trump a false prophet and crazy guy, was the Mexican president elected in 2000 to end the Freeze rule.
Fox.
Yes. Fox has profanely insisted that Mexico will not pay for this Trump-proposed construction project. Yes, 30 on the bonus. Toss of 10. This composer wrote a piece for electric violin and orchestra celebrating the California coast titled The Dharma at Big Sur. He won a Pulitzer Prize for a piece using 2 choirs and orchestra to commemorate the victims.
Adams.
15.
Nice.
Oscillations of electron density in these substances were studied by Irving Langmuir for 10 points each, in a state of matter consisting of an ionized gas.
Plasma.
Yes, plasmas are examples of these substances that readily allow the flow of charge. They include metals such as copper.
Conductor.
Yes, plasmas behave as though they are macroscopically neutral on length scales beyond this Dutch physicist's namesake length.
Yes.
He also names a unit
Divide.
of... Yes, 30 on the bonus.
Come on, through.
Toss of 11. One novel by this author depicts a man who forges both the bordereau behind the Dreyfus affair and the protocols of the Elders of Zion. 15.
Okay.
Each U.S. state is represented by statues at the U.S. Capitol Statuary Hall for 10 points each. This state plans to replace a statue of Confederate officer and St. Augustine native Edmund Kirby Smith with a statue of Barry McLeod Bethune.
Florida.
Yes. In April 2019, this state's governor, Asa Hutchinson, signed legislation to replace its statues with depictions of Daisy Bates and Johnny Cash. Answer, please.
Arkansas.
Yes. Utah has finalized plans to replace a statue of Philo T. Farnsworth, who invented an image dissector used in this visual entertainment medium.
Television.
Yes, 30 on the bonus. Toss up 12. This color appears in the name of a social network co-founded by Bill Bratton, a black and white U.S. flag with a stripe of this color.
Blue.
Yes, 15.
Nice.
For 10 points each, name is Wild West gunslingers. In 1881, Pat Garrett killed this outlaw who had fought in the Lincoln County War.
I think that's like Jesse James. Jesse James.
Billy the Kid.
Oh, sorry.
This gunfighter turned lawman was killed during a poker game in the town of Deadwood. His last hand of cards, aces and eights, is now called the dead man's hand.
Yeah, Hickok.
Yes.
Nice.
Bellstar and the Younger Brothers were in a gang with this outlaw who was shot in the back by Robert Ford in 1882.
This is Jesse James.
Yes, 20 on the bonus. Puzzle 13. Rudolf Kriege proposed a mechanism for a reaction of this compound with an alkene that generates two carbonyl compounds. The Chapman cycle describes the regeneration of this compound after it absorbs ultraviolet radiation. Radical halides catalyze the breakdown of this compound, depleting its levels in
Ozone.
Yes, 10 points. Your bonus. This country previously employed the sunshine policy of diplomacy with one of its neighbors. For 10 points each, name this Asian country. Since 1953, its only land border with its northern counterpart has been a 160-mile demilitarized
South
zone.
Korea.
Yes. Plans to formally end the Korean War were set at April 2018 talks between North Korea's Kim Jong-un and the South Korean president, who succeeded the impeached Park Geun-hye.
Moon Jae-in.
Yes, the talks occurred at the House of Peace in this area of the DMZ, which also contains the Bridge of No Return.
Defer.
Blue zone.
So the Joint Security Area says 20 on the bonus. Okay, and as I have, can you get us
175, 320. Oh, once again, Parish Episcopal, 175. Miami Valley, 320.
Then we are going to pick back up with toss-up 14. This hero made the sons of Phytalus priests at a temple of Artemis as a reward for purifying him after he killed several people, including the club bearer Periphetes. He was stopped from drinking poisoned wine after his father recognized a sword that was once left under a rock in treason. Ariadne helped this hero.
Theseus.
Yes,
Yeah.
This philosopher proclaimed that language is the house of being in his letter on humanism. 10 points each. Name this German philosopher who never finished his book, Being in Time.
Heidegger.
Yes. Heidegger's letter on humanism criticizes this French philosopher's claim that existence precedes essence. This man's dramatic works include the play No Exit.
Sartre.
Yes. In Being in Time, Heidegger uses this German word to describe the experience of human existence. It roughly translates the English phrase being there.
The same.
Yes, 30 on the
No
bonus.
shot.
Toss up 15. This novel describes a 4-year-old named Elizabeth who is hit for disobedience after being deafened by scarlet fever. Townspeople in this
Frankenstein.
Nick 5. Townspeople in this novel attend a terrible performance of the royal nunsuch put on by conmen called The Duke and the King. After fleeing his
Huckleberry.
For 10 points each, in these long-running TV shows, the longest-running TV show is this NBC News program, which first aired in 1947 and features interviews with politicians. Its current host is Chuck Todd.
Beat the press.
Yes.
Nice.
NBC also airs this long-running daytime show from which Matt Lauer departed in 2017 following harassment allegations.
Today Show.
Yes. The first season of this science fiction series aired on the BBC in 1963. In 2017, it was announced that Jodie Whittaker would portray the show's title character.
Doctor Who.
30 on the bonus. Toss-up 16. Reacting this material with chromic acid and sulfuric acid makes its expanded form, which is used in fuel cells. Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novoselov discovered that adhesive tape could separate this material's...
Wait. Graphite.
Yes, 15 points. For 10 points each, name these cities on the Tigris River. The Tigris supposedly ran black with the ink of destroyed books when this city was sacked by the Mongols in 1258. It is now the capital of Iraq.
Baghdad.
Yes. This city on the Tigris was Iraq's third most populous before this city was captured by ISIS in 2014.
Mosul.
Yes.
Nice.
Adjacent to Mosul on the Tigris is the site of this ancient Assyrian city, which contained a library of
Nineveh.
Ashurbanipal. Yes, 30 on the bonus. Toss 17. The Italian-born sculptor Victor Bresciare created this country's monument to the flags, which commemorates 17th century settlers called banderanches. Lucio Costa sketched the design.
Brazil.
15.
No shot.
This man adapted text from the Book of Common Prayer for his piece Music for the Funeral of Queen Mary for 10 points each. Name this English Baroque composer who also wrote the opera Dido and Aeneas.
Purcell.
Wendy Carlos adopted Purcell's Music for the Funeral of Queen Mary into the theme of this Stanley Kubrick film, which was based on a novel by Anthony Burgess.
Oh, so that's
a
Clockwork Orange.
Yes. An electronic adaptation of the Clockwork Orange theme was itself adapted into a song by this DJ, who performs with a smiling rodent mask.
Oh, it's a marshmallow.
Smiling rodent. No, it's dead mouse.
Okay.
Dead mouse?
Yes, Toss-up 18. A legend claimed that this state's flagship public university will collapse when a tree known as the Davy Poplar falls. 3 college towns form the points of this state's research triangle.
North Carolina.
Yes, 15 points. For 10 points each, answer the following about cloning in British literature. Duncan plans to have himself cloned in this author's novel Imperial Earth. Other novels by the science fiction author depict the intelligent computer HAL 9000.
Clark.
Yes. Hatcheries produce clones to populate the world state in this dystopian novel by Aldous Huxley.
Brave New World.
Yes. This author's novel, Never Let Me Go, describes a school for clones. Yes, 30 on the bonus. Toss at 19. The founder of this dynasty was legendarily conceived when GND ate an egg dropped by a black bird. It was the first dynasty known to write questions on shells, heat them, and then interpret the cracks. Those oracle bones are the...
Sean.
Yes, 10 points. Bonus. For 10 points each, identify these things about Monty Python. This member of the sketch team that developed Monty Python created Fawlty Towers with his wife, Connie Booth, and played Q in 2 James Bond movies. Answer, please.
Smith.
John Cleese. A group of knights in Monty Python and the Holy Grail are dreaded because of how they say this 2-letter word. Yes. A Monty Python sketch involves John Cleese's character trying to return a dead Norwegian blue of this type of bird.
Parrot.
Yes, 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 20. This author wrote the popular science book, The ABC of Relativity. In a letter to Gottlieb Frege, this man described a paradox he had discovered concerning the set of all sets that don't contain themselves.
Cantor.
NAQT. In the 1910s, this man produced a multi-volume book on the foundations of mathematics with Alfred North Whitehead. For 10 points, famous British philosopher and mathematician who wrote Principia Mathematica.
Russell.
10 points. For 10 points each, answer the following about IQ tests. IQ scores are generally scaled so that the mean is 100 and the standard deviation has this value, meaning that about 95% of the population has an IQ between 70 and 130.
30.
15. A popular IQ test is named for the psychologist Alfred Binet in what Palo Alto University?
Stanford.
Yes. Robert Yerkes developed intelligence tests administered to doughboys who were American men drafted to fight what war?
World War I.
Yes, 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 21. Small exploding targets are used in this country's national pastime, a tossing game called Tejo. The Santa Marta Mountains are an isolated range in this country. The Magdalena River meets the ocean at this country's city of Barranquilla.
Columbia.
15.
Good.
In 1965, this country became the first to withdraw from the UN, albeit for a very short time. 10 points each. Name this country that announced its departure from the UN under its first president, Sukarno. It is the largest island country in the world.
Indonesia.
Yes, Indonesia is the only country to have ever withdrawn from this intergovernmental organization, whose members include major oil producers such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Venezuela.
Okay.
Yes, Indonesia was a founding member of this organization, which was formed out of nations not long. Yes, 30 on the bonus.
Come on. Let's go.
Toss-up 22. This play describes an insult delivered on St. David's Day to the Welsh military officer Llewellyn, who retaliates by forcing the braggart...
Henry V.
Yes, 15. Antonietta de Lara originated the role of this character in a ballet choreographed by Marius Petipa for 10 points each. Name this ruler of the land of sweets who performs a pas de deux with her cavalier to the music of the Celesta. Yes. Soon after discovering the newly invented Celesta, this man composed the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Yes. This prima ballerina, who spent her early years on the Osage Reservation, appeared as the Sugar Plum Fairy in George Balanchine's landmark 1954 production of The Nutcracker.
Pavlova.
Maria Talchi, 20 on the bonus. Toss-up 23. This particle was discovered during experiments in which an alpha particle reacted with nitrogen to form oxygen in this particle. Those experiments were conducted by Ernest Rutherford, who named this particle from a Greek word for first. This particle is about 1,836 times more massive than the electron. An element's atomic number is its...
Proton.
Yes, 10 points.
I was like,
This word appears 3 times following a stanza, which includes the question, shall I at least set my lance in order, for 10 points each? Give this Sanskrit word meaning inner peace, which appears at the end of What the Thunder Said, the last section of a poem from 1922.
Shanti.
Yes. The word Shanti concludes this T.S. Eliot poem, which begins by stating that April is the cruelest month.
Wasteland.
Yes. The last stanza of The Wasteland quotes a nursery rhyme stating that a structure in this city is falling down. The poem refers to this place as an unreal city.
London.
30.
I'm out.
What?
Just doing a pet talk. fine. I figured you would have. Whatever.
All right, if everyone's looking at this, all right, one more question left. All right, are both teams ready? Okay, we're going to pick back up with toss-up 24. This man beat Toktamish at the Battle of the Tarak River in a defeat for the Golden Horde. 3 years later, this man defeated...
Kimberly?
Yes, 15. Pencil and paper ready. Consider a right triangle whose smallest angle measures 33 degrees. For 10 points each, what is the degree measure of the other acute angle of the triangle?
57.
Yes. If the triangle is inscribed within a circle whose radius is 8, what is the lane of the triangle's hypotenuse? Answer, please.
16.
Yes. What is the sum of the triangle's exterior angles?
360.
Yes, 30 points on the bonus. Okay, and that is the game. Great job, both teams.
So the final score of the Open Division Finals. Paris Episcopal, 355. Our champions, Miami Valley A, 570.